Everybody got their garbage man outfits for the day? Happy Halloween. Good morning. It's 6:05. It is great to be here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. I already told the girls that I would be Frankenstein. They were dying for me to be a zombie or a mummy, or I said, how about Frankenstein? They said, okay, that's good. Then I had to teach them all about Frankenstein. So I had to get this little Frankenstein costume for later today. But if I hadn't already bought the costume, I'd be running out to be a garbage man like Donald Trump was last night when he was on the ground in Green Bay, Wisconsin, getting set for a big rally, and he shows up on the tarmac dressed like a garbage man. It was absolute political genius, is what it was. Donald Trump is having more fun than he had certainly in 2020. I think he's having more fun than he was having back in 2016 on the campaign trail. He is loose. He is lighthearted by Donald Trump standards. And this all comes from a guy who has spent the last 2 years getting sued left and right, in and out of courtrooms, nearly getting killed twice, and he's having the time of his life. How many people could say that at his age with what he's gone through over the last 2 years? This is not about kissing the ring. This is not about, defining yourself as super MAGA, ultra MAGA, kind of MAGA, whatever. None of that matters. Just look at it from afar. If you can analyze it and have an honest conversation about it, you would come to the same conclusion I'm coming to. Donald Trump is having a blast right now. And when he showed up on that tarmac in the outfit dressed like a garbage man, I thought to myself, is this the thing that in the closing days is going to win him this election?
How do you like my garbage truck? This truck is in honor of Kamala and Joe Biden.
This garbage truck is in honor of Kamala and Joe Biden, John. This is great. He's having the ball. And then he gets up there on stage, and here's a guy who rarely dresses down. He's always in the suit. He's usually in the tie. You rarely see Donald Trump without a tie unless he's playing golf. And he wears the garbage man top on stage. He gives a speech dressed up like the garbage man. And this, of course, all comes from Joe Biden's commentary 2 nights ago on the Zoom call when he called Donald Trump supporters garbage.
Or Puerto Rico, where I'm in my home state of Delaware, they're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters. His demonization is seen as unconscionable, and it's un-American.
So that may have been the biggest October surprise to date. And it may have been the thing that in a very close election moves just enough voters in Donald Trump's favor to win this thing on Tuesday. I'm sensing some overconfidence from people who want to see Donald Trump win, and that would be a fool's errand right now. Do not, if you are a Trump supporter, get overconfident, because right now, everyone's counting out, it seems like, Kamala Harris. And that would be a big mistake. Not because Kamala Harris is not an incredibly incompetent candidate, she is, but the Democratic machine is still the Democratic machine and has more money and has strong ground games and knows exactly where to get voters and how to find them and get them out to the polls and get their mail-in ballots and the whole deal. So they know how to do that, and they know how to do it very well. And then you've got Donald Trump closing strong, dressed up like a garbage man last night, and just having a ball. And you could tell he was having a ball based on the stories he was telling. Based on the fact that he's talking about how he didn't want to wear the garbage man outfit on stage last night. He had no interest. But you know what made him put that outfit on last night? Well, let Trump tell the story.
Went to the arena, and I said, where's my jacket? I want to get out of this thing. And they said, it would be unbelievable if you could wear it on stage. I said... And I said, no way. I got 25,000 people standing outside. I got all these people here. There's no way I'm wearing it on stage. They said, oh, okay, sir. I said, get me my jacket. But if you did, it actually makes you look thinner. I said, oh. And they got me. I said, I want to wear it on stage. When they said I look thinner, I said, in that case, I'll wear it on stage. I may never wear a blue jacket again. I may go in this. I said that was the word. That was the key. Sir, you look thinner. So anyway, we had a little fun about a very serious subject. We had a little fun about a time where our country is not having a lot of fun because we're not doing well as a country, but we're going to be doing well very shortly. I promise you that.
You tell me where the joy is right now with a few days left in this 2024 campaign. You tell me. I mean, just be honest. I see the text line blowing up. I know many of you are not happy that Donald Trump does appear to have some momentum, but you just be honest with yourself for a moment. Where is the momentum today? Who is it currently with? Doesn't guarantee anything. It doesn't mean that person's going to win. But where is the joy and where is the momentum? And both of those things are indisputably with Donald Trump. Kamala Harris had some joy. While I thought it was phony, she had some joy, and then things went very dark in the last couple of weeks. Donald Trump is dressed up as a garbage man on Halloween Eve in Green Bay, Wisconsin, doing stunts on garbage trucks that are wrapped in Trump 2024, which is a credit to his team in turning that thing around.
The other side, the left, likes symbolism. I think the biggest symbolism of Kamala's campaign is they're saying her name, right?
Yeah, Kamala.
Now say your name. Cricket.
Yep.
That's the whole campaign.
That is the campaign in a nutshell. That was Veep meets The Office for Kamala Harris is what that was. And then there's Trump, who did not miss a beat. And his team wrapped a garbage truck and got him in a garbage man outfit in less than 24 hours after Joe Biden called his supporters garbage. That is tremendous work. On the text line, 913-408-7957, Pete, it would be hilarious if Trump went to the inauguration in this garbage truck as he starts taking out the D.C. political trash. Oh, that would be gold. Well done. Woo! On the text line. That's outstanding to kick it off on a Thursday Halloween morning on KCMO. I wish I could run to the store and grab one of the garbage man outfits for today. But like I said, I told the girls I'd be Frankenstein. I got a little headgear. I got to paint my face a little green for the day. So I don't want to disappoint them. Plus, they'd be like, Dad, why are you being a garbage man? And I don't really want to explain to them why I'm being a garbage man, since I try to keep the politics away from the kids as much as I possibly can. So it's not worth it. They won't find it funny, and they'll just be confused. Because I've got, let's see, what are we going to have today? We're going to have a cat, a bat, and a pumpkin. And then Kate's going to be a witch, and I'm going to be Frankenstein. So a garbage man really doesn't fit with everything else. We're kind of being classic Halloween costumes for the day. So the garbage man would just kind of look ridiculous anyway. So I don't think I can pull it off. But either way, I wish I could. So you've got to be a garbage man for me. Mark had an orange shirt on, so I thought he was going for some garbage man look, but I couldn't see what the shirt says.
You can call me the garbage man.
You look like it. This
is my Halloween shirt
costume. Oh, that's what it says?
Yeah.
This is my Halloween shirt?
Yeah.
All right. Well, John's dressed like the grumpy boomer producer today. That's what he's dressed as.
I should have worn I think I've got a peanut butter sandwich outfit from Spirit. One of the big square pieces of bread thing.
You'd look good in that walking around the halls.
Brought that in. Maybe I'll snap a pic for tomorrow.
That would be great.
Bring it in.
Well, either way, happy Halloween. Make sure you're getting out there with the kids. It's a fun day, fun time of year. And we've got a lot of fun to have this morning on KCMO Talk Radio. The media reaction to Trump's garbage truck stunt tells you all you need to know about how big of a win even they thought this was. We'll get to it coming up on 95.7 FM KCMO and streaming all morning long on the KCMO Talk Radio app. I want to play media comparison side by side at 6:20 here on a Thursday morning of how members of your favorite or least favorite cable news networks covered Joe Biden and his garbage comments yesterday versus how they spent the last couple of days covering an insult comics stand-up routine at Madison Square Garden on Sunday night. Here we go.
They're trying to make a firestorm out of something that, again, if you look at it, you look at what he said immediately afterward, which Donald Trump didn't say. He immediately afterwards said, no, that's not what I meant. I was talking about the comedian. And
wait, stop right there. That's Morning Joe. Oh, he came out right away and apologized or, clarified his comments, which Donald Trump didn't do. Donald Trump didn't make the comments, Morning Joe. I'm convinced as the guy's hair gets higher, his brain gets smaller. That's the only thing that makes sense for a guy like Joe Scarborough. It's just an unbelievable statement to make when these two things are in no way comparable. Come on, brother.
And people that supported that kind of talk. Willie, Joe Biden obviously doesn't believe that.
I'm of the mindset that if you say it, you might as well just embrace it. And I do think that that's a problem for realistically. Like, I do think if he said, listen, yeah, I do mean all those racist supporters of Donald Trump. Yeah, I do think that they're terrible.
By the way, as someone who had a stutter growing up, it's very obvious to me that there's an apostrophe at the end of supporters there. He was referring to the garbage spewed by supporters, not simply the supporters themselves.
Basically calling Puerto Ricans trash.
The most repulsive racial jokes about Latinos.
Disgusting and hateful.
So incredibly crude.
Frankly, just too X-rated to play here.
Extremely vile so-called jokes.
Oh, gosh. Clutch those pearls, please. For all of us, clutch them. Clutch them nice and good. We spend time, obviously, on this show talking about media bias. We cover it, unfortunately, because it's real. Whether it's here in Kansas City with the Kansas City Star and some of your TV outlets like the ones we have dubbed Woke 41 Action News and some of the others, it is real. There's no doubt about it. It's real. At the local level and, of course, at the national level. But this last week is a perfect encapsulation of media bias on two very different stories. One, an insult comic who showed up hours before Donald Trump telling some jokes that I didn't find all that funny. Not because I don't have a sense of humor, but I like jokes that are set up, like there's a setup and a punchline, not just someone who's trying to be a shock jock, like what you hear sometimes on the radio. Like, I like smart humor that's set up well, has a kicker, has some depth to it. Not like, man, Puerto Rico, floating island of garbage. Okay, there was no setup. There was no punchline. I don't get it. Why is the funny? Where is it? But that's just me. Everyone's got a different sense of humor. But you compare comments from a comedian and how the media covered that to how they cover Joe Biden, the sitting president of the United States. It's not even like Biden's out of office and he's a surrogate. He is the sitting president of the United States, calling Donald Trump supporters garbage. And the way they excuse it, the way they say, yeah, but Trump, but the orange man.
Typical kind of things where they dismiss many things with it. Well, obviously, he doesn't believe that.
Yeah. Oh, how do you know?
Whoa.
Yeah.
Not obvious.
Not obvious at all, based on some of the things he has said over the years. But somehow a comedian is basically speaking for Donald Trump. Donald Trump might as well have said what the comedian said when you listen to the media. Right? And that in and of itself is the disingenuous way that they handle this stuff. Now, this article was written yesterday by New York Magazine. After the Trump bump, there's now the Bezos ditch. And, of course, they're ragging on Bezos and how the Washington Post failed to endorse a presidential candidate for the first time in decades. And Bezos wrote a great piece and a critically important piece in the Washington Post a couple of days ago we told you about, where he admitted we are no longer trusted as journalists. And he's not talking just about the Washington Post. He's saying, as a business, we are not trusted by the American people. We are less trusted than Congress. And we can either continue to sink ourselves or we can try to turn around the ship. And it was a very good letter. It may be one of the most important letters written in any newspaper this century because the industry is getting killed. There is no trust in the mainstream media. Legacy media is what I like to call them because they're not even mainstream anymore. They're just legacy media. And maybe Jeff Bezos is the guy that starts turning things around. Well, in this piece in New York Magazine headlined, "After the Trump bump, there's the Bezos ditch," an anonymous TV executive was quoted in the piece. And the anonymous TV executive said the following, quote, "If half the country has decided that Donald Trump is qualified to be president, that means they're not reading any of this media. And we've lost this audience completely. A Trump victory means mainstream media is dead in its current form." And that is a far cry from where things were 8 years ago when Donald Trump rode mainstream media to a win. He used them brilliantly to win back in 2016 with earned media because you still had some pull from some of these traditional legacy media outlets. But 8 years later, with the way the media has been fragmented, it's dying. And it's more untrustworthy than it's ever been. And if there's one thing that unites the country, it's a despise for the propaganda press. For the republic to thrive and the return tolerance, respect, and free speech to the land, you can make an argument that they have to completely sink themselves into the ground. On the text line, 913-408-7957. Pete, good morning. I just saw a man wearing an orange vest walking out of Quick Trip when I was walking in. I said, "Hey, I saw someone last night with a vest just like that." He said, "Who?" I said, "Donald Trump."
Such a nice man.
He laughed and thought it was cool. I told him to keep up the great work. And then he got into his garbage truck. Oh, that is just outstanding. Very well done. Yeah, let's always be nice to the garbage men. They're working hard jobs out there every single day. I never usually see my guys because they come late morning and I'm not typically around then. But when I have seen them, rare occasion, I give them a big old wave. Those guys are busting their butts as well. 628, happy Thursday, happy Halloween. A Kansas City big brand is catching heat because some people thought they were getting political. They actually weren't. We'll tell you who that was next on KCMO. Unbelievable. 634, happy Halloween. Poor Made in KC. You know, Made in Kansas City, they are a local brand. They've been around for about 10 years. And you've seen their shops. You've seen their merch. They got a good brand going here. Built it at the perfect time, obviously, as Kansas City got pretty hot and became kind of a national brand over the last few years, courtesy of some of the sports success in this town and everything else going on around here. So the other day, and this came to my attention earlier in the week, but I wanted to get more clarity on it. I guess if you go to the Made in KC store in the airport, there are T-shirts bearing Donald Trump slogans on them in the Made in KC marketplace area, including a red MAGA hat, hoodies and T-shirts bearing Donald Trump's slogan, "Never Surrender." So this started going viral on the Kansas City Reddit page in the last couple of days. And the post gathered hundreds of comments. And obviously you had a lot of wokesters in Kansas City who were all upset by this. And they were like, "Why is there MAGA gear in the airport? What's going on? This is unbelievable." Now, I have not been in the airport since, I guess it would have been July. Mark, you were up there most recently out of all of us. Did you see, were you perusing the Made in KC spot or no?
I was there so early that some of these spots weren't open yet.
Yeah, that's right. You were out very early. You left at like 6 a.m. You had to get to Vegas by 8 o'clock to start placing those sports bets out there.
Exactly.
So you didn't see it because, like you said, some of those stores you were at were closed. And then you came back and it was like 11 p.m. when you got back.
Yeah.
So you probably didn't see this. But I've been in the airport many times since the new one opened. I know exactly where they're talking about with the Made in KC marketplace area. And I don't go in there a lot. I mean, this is all stuff that's not intended for those of us who live here. It's intended for those of us who are maybe visiting and want to grab a quick piece of merch. It's like when I fly to New York, they've got all the I Heart New York T-shirts and mugs. It's for the tourists. Well, here's the thing. That Reddit user who went viral didn't note that right next to all the Trump merch for Made in KC was a Kamala Harris 2024 hat and a sweatshirt bearing Kamala Harris's slogan, "When we fight, we win." So this Reddit user causes a firestorm in parts of Kansas City on social media and fails to point out that right next to the Trump merch was the Harris merch, courtesy of Made in KC. I would think if you're that triggered by one, you would be that happy by the other. But this is a classic example of, frankly, people on one side of the political aisle just wanting to cancel those that they disagree with. As long as I would see merchandise from both sides of the aisle, I'd be like, whatever. They're trying to capitalize on Democrats and they're trying to capitalize on Republicans. And as long as both pieces of merchandise are next to each other, which apparently they are up at the airport, and if you've been up there recently and seen this, I do want to hear from you at 913-408-7957. But as long as they've got both sides represented, I have no problem with this whatsoever. Now, maybe if you're a Green Party guy, you're going to be disappointed because your Green Party candidate's not up there. Same thing for the Libertarians. But, okay, fine. We can't please everybody. We've got the bulk on the left. We've got the bulk on the right. We've got Kamala Harris stuff. We've got Trump stuff. Okay, everyone should be happy, right? But the firestorm was set off because the appearance was on Reddit that Made in KC was only doing MAGA gear. And that's just not true.
In Nevada, they were giving out poker chips that were customized, and you could get one with Trump or Kamala on it.
In the airport?
Yeah, in the airport.
That's cool. I'm fine with that.
And that's a swing state.
Yes. And, what's the big deal? As long as both sides are covered, you shouldn't be upset by this, whether you're a Republican or you're a Democrat. Get over yourself. So this started popping on Reddit. Kansas City Star, of course, had to write about it. And they talked to Made in KC owner Tyler Enders. Now, Tyler's going to be on the show this morning at 8:30. I know Tyler a little bit. A good guy, not a super political guy as far as I can tell, and just a guy who's trying to build the business. He's one of the founders and co-owners of Made in KC. And he told the Kansas City Star, "We didn't approve this. It's disappointing to see these products in a shop with our name on it. We've never carried election merch in any of our stores." So how did it happen? Well, here's the deal. When you get into business with a place like KCI up at the airport, the restaurants, the shops, they are merely licensing their names to the airport. And that's how most airports run. They have a management company that's hired by the airport. And then the management company will basically go around to area businesses, some local, some national, and license out the name and the product. So that's exactly what happened with Made in KC. There is a firm called W.H. Smith, and they're the ones who run the airport shop. And they partner with Vantage Group, which is the developer and the manager of record for KCI's concession and dining program. So all Made in KC does is say, yeah, sure, you can use our brand. You can it's basically a name, image, likeness deal. If you're a college sports fan, you'll understand that. Basically, they say, sure, take our Made in KC branding. You guys sell it. You do what you want with it. And then you kick some back to us on the back end. That's all they're doing. They're selling their name, image, and likeness for a cost. They're probably also reaping some of the profits on the back end. And that's all there is to it. They're not having to ship anything. They're not develop anything. They're not manning the stores. They're not doing any of that. They're just saying, take our brand and do with it what you want. Well, clearly, nobody read the fine print because Made in KC was not happy about this. Now, I don't blame them for taking that approach and being like, we don't do politics, we just do Kansas City. That's all well and good. But the first thing I would have done is pointed out, hey, they had Kamala gear there too, and we're not in charge of any of this. But I wouldn't necessarily go down the road of, well, we're disappointed in the vendors. I don't know if the vendors got this one right. I just say, listen, there was Kamala gear. We sell our name, image, likeness rights, whatever you want to call it, to the vendors up there at the airport, and they did with it what they wanted. Not what we would have done, but guess what? We're making a lot of money on this deal. We're capitalists. Maybe we'll try to rewrite the deal going forward, but I'm not going to sit here and have a lot of sympathy for anybody involved. As long as the story is properly told and both sides of the aisle were covered, then what's the big freaking deal? Like, get over it. Everyone's going to survive. Just because some Reddit user was triggered by MAGA gear, doesn't mean that there has to be this mea culpa involving everybody involved with the company. Just say, this is how the deal is structured. They covered both sides of the aisle. Move on. Get over yourself. But it seems like there's always one side that is far more likely to be triggered by this than the other. 913-408-7957. That's the text line here on KCMO Talk Radio. Pete, I was in Hot Springs, Arkansas recently. They have a huge Trump store. I was tempted to send a picture to my family and ask them what they wanted me to pick up. They are all Democrats. My wife convinced me not to. Your wife is very smart. As is the case for most of us, she is smarter than you. Well done.
Thanksgiving is coming.
Yes, Thanksgiving.
Be cautious.
Be cautious. Well, there's that big one down in Branson as well. If you've been down there, there's a massive Trump store right on the main drag there in Branson that I did go into when we went 2 summers ago. And it was basically what you would expect. All the little tchotchkes you could get your hands on. And there's a big Trump blow-up doll on the outside. So it's pretty entertaining. But it's different when you're talking about in the airport, right? That's what's different. Pete, don't hang those Trump and Harris shirts too close together. They might start a fire. Oh, gosh. 913-408-7957. It's Halloween morning. We appreciate you being here on KCMO Talk Radio. Let's get to Shane in Paola before the break. Shane, what's going on, brother?
Hey, good morning, Pete. On my way to work. Yeah, there's a Trump store in Branson, and people seem to love that store. And so hopefully some people go down there and that'll get their feathers ruffled.
Well, they can listen. There's nothing wrong with a merch store, right? That's different than being in the airport. But as long as you're covering both bases, whatever. Anyway, go ahead.
I mean, I don't care if you're a store. If you want to sell all Kamala stuff, that's your prerogative.
Yeah.
Like, I don't feel like you got to sell the Trump stuff just so you feel included. That's not my look on things. So.
Mm-hmm. No, I wouldn't mind it either, right? Like, I wouldn't care one bit, Shane. Thank you, man. I wouldn't care one bit if they said, hey, we're only going to sell Kamala gear. I'd be like, whatever. That's your prerogative. And then it would be my prerogative to say, if you're only going to pick one side of the political aisle, then I have the right to say I'm out. The Made in KC guys sound smart. They're basically saying, we don't really want to be involved in politics, but if our vendor up at the airport is going to use our brand to do politics, they better do it on both sides. And that's all I would ask as well, because their business is not inherently political. It's better for their business to take the approach of Michael Jordan, which is that Republicans buy sneakers too. There is no need for them to pick a side. That would just be bad for business. So this whole thing was an uproar over nothing. It was some Reddit user who was in a sour mood, who clearly was a super wokester, who was offended by seeing MAGA gear up at the airport, even though there was Kamala gear right next to it. Grow up. Happy Halloween. It's 6:50 on a busy Thursday morning on KCMO. Charlie Gasparino, Fox Business Network, is going to be here in 15 minutes. We'll get the inside from Wall Street and what those heavy hitters are thinking with just a few days to go until the election. Did you see what happened here in Kansas City? This kind of came out of nowhere. At least I wasn't aware it was coming. I don't think anybody really was. Applebee's closing several restaurants, 8 restaurants, Olathe, Overland Park, Mission, Lee Summit, Leavenworth, and 2 in KCK are closing the doors. There are still 2 that are going to remain open in Blue Springs, and there's one in the Northland as well.
Yeah, Gladstone.
Yeah. So I'm not a big Applebee's guy. John, are you?
My headphones cut out. You're saying you're not or are?
I'm not.
I'm not a big Applebee's guy. I was at one time, but things kept changing.
Okay. Well, sounds like it's very personal between you and Applebee's.
It can be at times.
At times.
Where'd the green beans go?
Yeah, seriously.
That was our big spot to go in college. There was one in Olathe. I just saw that it shut down, so I wish I could have gone one more time.
Well, I have been to one Applebee's during my 6.5 years in Kansas City, and it really will hold a special place in my heart.
Uh-oh.
It was on the first day of work here. First day of work at KCMO.
Mm-hmm.
I was staying, the station's was up in Mission.
Yeah.
We're now down here in Corporate Woods.
We could see the one out the window.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, there actually was also another one down here off Metcalf.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So there was a hotel they had me up in when I started working here, right down off 435 and probably Metcalf over in that area. Green Clove or something like that. Greenleaf, I don't know.
Yeah.
Right there down by the Overland Park Convention Center. So I'm staying down there. So I finish up my first day here on the job. I go down to the hotel. And I'm here by myself. Kate's still, wrapping up, closing up back east, and she's set to come out in a few days. And she calls me up, and she says, I'm pregnant. So it's just a lot to, you got a new city, new job, new people. You're not with your spouse, and then you find out you're going to be a first-time parent. And it was a lot, right? I mean, there's just a lot of emotions. There's a lot going on. So what do? I'm like, man, I need a beer. I go to Applebee's right here on Metcalf, and that's the last time I was in an Applebee's. 6.5 years ago.
Wow.
April of 2018, right here on Metcalf. And I always said to her, I said, we've got to go back to that Applebee's because
that's a good one.
It was pretty good. I sat at the bar, had a couple of beers. The price was right, and just had to blow off a little bit of steam and kind of process everything that was about to happen in my life. It was all positive, but it was, I admit, a very emotional day. And that night, Villanova beat Michigan in the national championship game as well.
Well, somebody had a special day.
I know. It was a great day. You're right.
That was one of the it seems like a very classy Applebee's over there off
that was a good
Metcalf.
Yeah.
And they used to have trivia there. Me and my friends would go to trivia there every now and then.
Yeah, it was a very nice spot. I'm surprised it wasn't doing well. I figured I put it on the map after having a few beers there.
Oh, I think some of them do better than others, and you get this franchisee thing. I mean, we already had this round one was maybe 4 or 5 years ago where we lost 6 or 7. One guy goes down, and I think that's what we've got here pretty much.
Well, I mean, it seemed like those appetizer commercials were working out well for them. They had a good bang for their buck for a while.
It was decent food for the price at one time, and then they quit doing that, and then it just kind of kept changing around. And then each one kind of, what I liked was when I went into one, they would kind of have the high school football history somewhere on the wall around there, which was fun to look at. Cool memorabilia.
Absolutely.
The half-price appetizers got us college kids in there for sure.
I'm sure it did. Did you guys tip or no? Were you cheap SOBs?
See, some of the college kids didn't tip. Obviously, I was a waiter at one point, so I would tell everybody, you got to tip.
You got to tip. Come on now. You got to be kidding me.
Tip like it's a normal price meal.
Exactly. On the text line, it's the Biden-Harris economy. No money to spend on casual dining. Lots of places going to $10.99 meal specials, and the profit margins are going down.
Yep.
I think there's something to be said for that.
Absolutely.
Their labor costs keep going up, right? Labor costs are up. Food costs are up. And if you're going to run a restaurant, you better sell a lot of booze because the profit margins are not there right now on the food. And that's unfortunate, but it's a reality for them as well. Now, things coming to Kansas City, potentially, you heard John mention it on the news, the WNBA. This coming down yesterday from Adam Schefter. As WNBA expansion continues, ownership of the KC Current, which includes Patrick Mahomes and his wife Brittany, has met with the WNBA and is in contention to bring the league's next franchise to Kansas City. Now, we know the WNBA wants to expand from 12 teams to 16 teams by 2028. I'm good with it. I mean, T-Mobile has done a great job building a business off of concerts. Like, we do have A-list concerts come through town because we don't have to deal with NBA or NHL dates. So they know that for the most part, they can make it happen here in Kansas City. But if the WNBA wants to come here, I know, we goof on things in the WNBA sometimes, but I think it'd be great. I think the girls would love it. I would try to take them down the games, depending on the price point for the WNBA. The only problem that I still can't wrap my head around is the fact that the league is still losing money. They lost $40 million last year. Now, that's less money than they've lost. Like, they are building, they are growing, but the WNBA has been around for 30 years and has not turned a profit. So my fear would be that it would not work out, but I do see a growing product, and here's the good thing as well. If they play at T-Mobile, it's not like you're building a new arena for them. And then, whoa, well, it's too bad we lost that WNBA team we just built $1 billion arena for. If they're just going to play in a place we've already got, that's great, John.
Well, it was like that with the Kings here, and you would play everybody in the division. At that time, Houston and Chicago sucked. Pre-Michael Jordan, it was just, you had 5, 6, 7 games a year with each of these teams, and it got boring. And they're just pre-superstar, right? When they started pushing Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, and Jordan, et cetera, we'd already kind of lost our franchise, and we were on the verge. We lost 2 guys that the owners just let get away, and it's like, right there at the wrong time, I guess, or just we got, like, to your point where you're saying you're in the right place at the wrong time, maybe.
Well, it seems like this could be the right place at the right time for Kansas City.
Right, I would say the energy is certainly as heavy as it's been. The energy's been as exciting as ever.
Yeah, you got some superstars, no doubt about it. I still don't get Quentin Lucas dressing up as Mayor Adams. I mean, they're both bald black guys. I don't understand.
I think he was going for the easy costume. That's what he was saying. Did he say he was terrible at making good costumes? I think. So he thought it was,
I mean, I respect it, I guess.
I'm going as John Anthony.
Yeah, so, that's even easier then.
Right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like the same thing. I'm thinking that was what he was saying.
You could be Clint Eastwood as well. Go
just
for the old man on the porch.
Color of his tie, maybe.
Yeah, maybe that's it. That's all he's got to do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Eric Adams, he's been making a lot of sense lately, so maybe that's what Quentin Lucas is going for as well.
He shouldn't do it, though, because that's an upgrade for Adams.
Yeah.
He doesn't deserve.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to stoop down to that level, Adams really hasn't been good on the illegal immigration front. His 5-star hotels are now flooded with illegals.
Well, you put the 2 of them at a microphone. Who's going to win? That's what I mean.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Quentin will win that one every time. I will give him that much. No doubt about it.
Right.
Oh, man. So this story came out of the Washington Post yesterday. And I'm going to tie this to our news media climate, our political media climate. But the story is about the battle over reporters' access to NFL locker rooms. There is now a movement from the players' union to basically say, hey, we don't want reporters hanging in the locker room anymore. We just don't want it. We're changing. We're getting dressed. We don't want people just staring at us nude. There was one comment from a player anonymously a couple of weeks ago saying that they're sick of reporters looking at his junk. I'm just saying, I guess,
Cover
whatever.
your junk, bro.
Yeah, exactly. So you might sit there and say to yourself, well, why do I care about this? Well, in news media, and with more of what we deal with, political news media, we have a problem. And the problem is incredible bias, and the problem is lack of transparency. We are losing good, solid local reporters at the newspaper level and really at every level of local media. And the national media has just become so biased, it's more about the talking heads than it is about the reporting itself. So we need good reporters to cut through. And my fear here is that on the sports side, what they want to do and what they want to create is basically a world where team propaganda and player propaganda reigns. You have players who are able to access their fans now directly through Instagram, social media, podcasts. They don't need media anymore to talk to the fans, right? They view that as antiquated. But there is value in having the reporters there to cut through it, to report on things that the players and the teams maybe don't want out there. That's why you need these reporters in these locker rooms, and you need them to be able to have this kind of access. They will find out things that may not be advantageous to the players of the teams, but are valuable for the fans. So when I saw this story, I thought about it in relation to what we deal with every day in the news and political arena. And the more reporting we have at this level, the better off the industry is going to be, and the better off it's going to be for the fan. So while the NFL Players Union is out there trying to rewrite the rules and get the reporters out of the locker room, you're having a lot of pushback, and rightfully so. Now, there have been some tweaks, and one of those tweaks is right here in Kansas City. Some teams have issued new locker room policies that don't allow filmed interviews during the week. And that includes the Atlanta Falcons and the Kansas City Chiefs. Dallas Cowboys have a policy that prohibits cell phone video in the locker room as well. So if that's just personal space issues, okay, fine. You can use audio, but you can't necessarily have video in the locker room during the week. That's pretty minor. That's not a big deal to me. I mean, the TV guys are going to be upset by that, but whatever. As long as you have the access, you can report what you need to report. That's really what matters the most. But if you are a fan, and we all are in many cases, especially in this town, sports fans, it's important that we keep this kind of access. And it's not about me. I don't do any of this stuff anymore. I'm not in locker rooms. I don't care. It's not like about me or anything like that. But if you're a fan and you want some kind of transparency from your sports teams, like you want from your politicians, like you want from your news media, then you also should want it on this front, even though it's much less important in the grand scheme of things.
I see it as two different issues, and you're talking about news reporting, and I think that's valuable. So I agree with you there. When the guy's on and he's beefing on X about to his fans, that's promotion.
Yeah.
That's marketing.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
But you could also have a player being like, I blew out my Achilles yesterday, and just trying to cut out the middleman. But how bad is the Achilles? What do we actually know about the injury?
Sure.
I don't want that going on either. I don't want just like, hey, we don't need reporters. We're just going to have players and teams report their own injuries, and that's going to be that. I do think there's value in having guys behind the scenes or gals behind the scenes who are doing this kind of work.
Exactly. Right.
In this article in the Washington Post, they write here, in recent weeks, the issue has sparked debate across sports, with the Kelce brothers discussing how easy it is not to be seen naked, while other players have taken to social media to decry the awkward dynamics. Put a towel on, fellas. I mean, yeah. I change all the time. I've got 4 women in my house. I've got 1 male dog. I can figure out how to change with a towel and then putting clothes on under a towel without being seen nude. Although this morning I made a mistake. I didn't think I'd tell this story on the air this morning. This morning, it's 4:30 in the morning, and getting ready, I shower, house is pitch black, and taking off the towel, putting on my clothes, pull up the boxer briefs, look to my left, and there's my 3-year-old Chloe standing at the doorway. She goes, Dada, what are you doing? What are you doing? You came in here like a mouse. Get back in bed. It's 4:30 in the morning. What are you doing? And I think that was the first time I technically had ever changed completely naked in front of her, but I didn't even know it was happening because she was awake at 4:30 in the morning. So that's on her, not me. 8:05, happy Halloween morning. Thanks for joining us on KCMO as we sit here with just a few days to go. Can you believe it? 5 days to Election Day. And what you're seeing right now is 2 campaigns that to me are trending in very different directions. It doesn't mean the one that's trending in a negative direction cannot win. It can. That would be the Harris campaign. They have gobbles and gobbles of money, and they've got an incredible ground game. They always have. That's part of the machine the Democratic Party has mastered. And then you have Donald Trump, who is having the time of his life. Yesterday, he's getting his way into a garbage truck. He's dressed like a garbage man. And this came, of course, one day after Joe Biden called his supporters garbage.
How do you like my garbage truck? This truck is in honor of Kamala and Joe Biden.
Yeah, that's right. Kamala and Joe Biden. He's having a blast. He's given a speech last night in Green Bay, Wisconsin, in the garbage truck outfit. But one thing is very interesting to me. The Harris campaign doesn't seem all that interested in actually trying to break through anymore with potential Donald Trump voters. They have honed in and doubled down on the base. And it's a strategy. It might very well work for them. But I was thinking about it last night and why her campaign took this approach the last couple of weeks to say, forget the swing voter, forget the person that might be on the fence. We're all in on the base. That's where you've gotten the Nazi stuff, the fascist stuff, all those different things, right? And that's because, in large part, and this is what you've seen play out with Joe Biden's commentary, I don't think they actually have any respect or care for a voter who might consider even voting for Donald Trump. Like, that ship to me has completely sailed. And they said, if you're actually thinking about voting for Donald Trump, this is internally to themselves, well, we don't really respect you anyway as a voter. So why are we going to even try to get that person into our tent, so to speak? Let's just try to make sure we turn out everybody we possibly can who thinks Orange Man bad. And it's a strategy that could win them the election. Now, Donald Trump hasn't done a yeoman's job trying to win that person over, but he's done a better job of the two the last couple of weeks, as far as I can tell. Could he do a better job? Sure. If Donald Trump loses this election, there will be a couple of reasons for it. And one of them will be the over-focus on young men who are less likely and really the least likely demographic to get out there and vote. I just heard that J.D. Vance wrapped up his podcast with Joe Rogan, and it went almost 4 hours. I mean, the purpose of that is for young men who are leaning now more conservative than they ever have to get out there and vote. But young men are far less likely to get out there and vote, and way less likely than young women. So is that a strategy that they overplayed their hand on? It's entirely possible. But on the Harris side, you look at it and you say, okay, we know what the base is. We know what they're going for. But is that, frankly, the best strategy right now for them? It might be. Because if their goal is to simply turn out female voters and drive up the female numbers because of abortion in particular and just not liking Donald Trump, if you're looking for people that have a high propensity to get out there and vote, women are more likely to vote than guys. So it's not the worst strategy. But this garbage moment could be the thing that tilts things back in Donald Trump's favor these last couple of days. And you don't have to take just my word for it. Here is what was said by Frank Luntz last night. Now, Frank Luntz is a pollster who has been in the scene for decades now. He was always considered a Republican pollster, but then Donald Trump basically crushed him. He was wrong about Donald Trump in 2016. It really hurt his standing as a pollster, but he's come back. He's become still a pretty credible voice, and I think he's pretty fair down the middle on things as well. He calls it like it is on both sides. He still has the worst wig I've ever seen. It looks like a rat's nest on his head, but he says some pretty common sense stuff. And here was Frank Luntz last night reacting to the garbage moment and what it could mean for Donald Trump down the stretch.
Comments seemingly describing Trump supporters as, quote, garbage. The Harris campaign is trying to downplay the effect of those comments. Of course they are. But I wonder if you think that those comments are going to move voters.
It's going to be huge because this is not some comedian saying something stupid and offensive at a rally where he should have been basically disinvited. This is the president of the United States endorsing his vice president saying something. And I know that there's different interpretations about what he said. It's still inappropriate. He still shouldn't be doing it. And I've watched Trump already seize this. The basket of deplorables was significant, was meaningful in 2016. In 2024, I can promise you that this is going to drive Trump turnout. He's doing it already. I can see, I'm sure there's going to be ads on as soon as tonight about this. This may be a turning point for those final 3%, and that's all it is, who still need to be persuaded.
That was Frank Luntz last night, talking about the garbage commentary and what it could mean down the home stretch. Now, despite what some of you are saying on the text line, Pete, pearl clutching is apparently your closing argument. No, it's not. I'm really not offended by it. I'm not sitting here gasping, oh my gosh, how could you? Oh boy.
How dare you?
No, I kind of heard Joe Biden say it, and I said, well, at least you're saying the quiet part out loud. Like, I actually think you kind of believe that about Donald Trump voters, so at least you're being honest, which not exactly a staple of Joe Biden.
Come on, man.
But it is what it is. I'm not offended by it, but it does make a difference to people who still might be sitting there on the fence wondering what they're going to do. And if you are on the fence and you are wondering what you're going to do in one of these key swing states, and you're told, hey, you know what? Boy, if you end up going for this guy, Donald Trump, you've got the sitting president of the United States who's out there making comments like that. That doesn't sway you one way or the other, especially when the Republican Party, in many respects, has become the anti-establishment party. Like, this came up during Donald Trump's podcast with Joe Rogan the other day. And it was a spot-on analysis that it is right now the party that is anti-establishment, counterculture. This movement, and even this format in many respects in radio, has become what like alt-rock was in its heyday. Edgy, different, talking about things and saying things that you can't possibly say at the water cooler at work, right? That's what it's become. And when you look at it from that perspective, there's a lot of people that like being part of the counterculture, that like being told they're anti-establishment, they're not down with the man. And that is a big appeal to Donald Trump's movement. And when you have the elite of the elites telling you that, well, if you go with that guy, we think you're garbage. Or at least the guy who is right now the face of the party, the head of the party, the president, not some dopey comedian. It's not Stephen Colbert calling me garbage or calling you garbage. Like, who cares about that? I know what Colbert thinks. But when someone who's got the stature of the sitting president of the United States, it's awfully telling. And Frank Luntz is right to point out that when you're just talking about 3% of people here down the home stretch, that can be a make or break moment, because it is appealing to walk into a voting booth and know that you're part of the counterculture movement and know that you're part of the anti-establishment. And for people who just want to see stuff broken in Washington, D.C., who aren't overtly political but feel like it's not working for them, that person right now, I believe, is going to walk into that voting booth and is going to more likely break for Donald Trump than Kamala Harris. And if you are someone who wants to see Donald Trump get elected on Tuesday, that's something that you should take some solace in and be sleeping well at night thinking about. There's plenty that should concern you as well, but that's one of those things as we sit here today that should at least give you some optimism going into Tuesday. 913-408-7957. That's our text line. And, of course, our studio line here on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. Pete, people are going to be dressing up their kids as trash bags today. You know, I wouldn't do it. Like I said, I don't like to get my kids involved in all the political stuff. I already told them I'd be Frankenstein as well. So what am I going to do? Show up in a trash bag? They're going to be so confused. And I don't really feel like explaining it to them. So I'll stick to my original plan and go as Frankenstein. Lead story this morning from the Kansas City Star. Extended GOP control of Missouri would affect KC. What it could mean on crime, guns, and taxes. Ooh, there's a spooky story on Halloween from the Kansas City Star. It's just comical as well. So here's one of the first sentences in the article. As Election Day approaches, Missouri Republicans are poised to extend their total control of state government for at least 2 more years. A GOP sweep would carry consequences for Kansas City, a Democrat-leaning city where local leaders sometimes chaff at state officials and policies. I love how they describe Kansas City as a Democratic-leaning city. There is 1 Republican out of 13 on the city council. 1 out of 13. That is Nathan Willett. Now, there are some more moderate Democrats, notably up in the Northland, but to qualify Kansas City as a Democrat-leaning city would be an unfair evaluation based on the fact that it is completely controlled by Democrats.
Yeah, to me, leans like 60-40.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I mean, I can't think of anybody in city government who is identified as a Republican beyond Nathan Willett. Like, you think about anybody. Mm-hmm. I mean, I talk to these people all the time. I can't think of one. So that's a poor description of Kansas City. They then write here in the Kansas City Star, a Republican governor and a Republican-controlled legislature would almost certainly put a halt to any renewed discussion of Kansas City assuming control of its police force, one of the few state-controlled departments in the country. Okay, that's not happening anyway. There is no renewed discussion to be had. The city tried to sue over this in the last couple of years. It failed. It bombed out. It's not happening. Like, they are living in a fantasy world, thinking that this is even something that's on the table. And if there's one big mistake that Quinton Lucas has made, I mean, there's been a couple, but I would say the biggest mistake is picking these fights with the state legislature over the last couple of years, because then it makes the state legislature even less likely to get you what you want. The Kansas City Star is living on another planet if they think there's even a discussion to be had on this front, as if somehow it will do anything to improve crime in this town anyway. They then write, a Republican attorney general would potentially fight local efforts to restrict firearms. Yeah, because cities don't get to make up their own gun laws. I know they can try to get through these different ordinances, and Kansas City has done that, but that's not how this works. The power is within the states. Cities really, when you think about it at its core, cities don't really have any power. The power has always been in the Constitution with the states. The states are where the power is at. But then we get to these weird conversations where it's like, no, the more local control we have, the better. Cities should do what they want to do. And, I mean, how far do you want to break that down? Should just HOAs have their own laws? Like, how much do you want to micromanage that on a super local level? The states are where the control lies. But they're right here. GOP lawmakers have shown little interest in giving cities and counties more power to regulate guns, even as Kansas City tries to combat shootings and homicides. This is supposed to be a news piece, by the way. You wonder why Jeff Bezos rightfully points out in his great op-ed this week in the Washington Post that journalists are trusted less than Congress in recent polling. And it's because of stuff like this in the Kansas City Star. This is not journalism. This is opinion. Now, it's fine to have an opinion. I'm not saying they can't have an opinion, but this is the kind of stuff that gets masked as reporting and journalism. It's not. Like, I never try to lie to you on this stuff. What I do is opinion. Now, it's opinion around the news, and the best part about this show is you can call in and tell me off, and we can make entertaining radio. That's the beauty of it. But I'm not sitting here as a news guy. Now, sometimes I have news that other media in town won't have, and we bring it to you on KCMO, but I'm not masking or trying to trick you into something I'm not. They are. And this is a perfect example of it. The insinuation from that sentence right there is that Republican lawmakers in Missouri basically don't want to help Kansas City combat homicides and combat crime. And that's simply, obviously, inaccurate. The insinuation there is that somehow, if only the state would allow the city to write its own gun laws, we'd have a utopia, nobody would get shot and killed, homicides would fall off the cliff, and that's just a lie. That is a flat-out lie. But to the Kansas City Star, that's Big J journalism. They add here, Republican lawmakers have been monitoring the debacle surrounding Jackson County's property tax assessment and could seek to reform the process, possibly with bipartisan support. Some have also questioned the earnings tax in Kansas City and St. Louis, a crucial source of revenue for the city government. And while both Mike Kehoe, the Republican, and Democrat Crystal Quaid agree on the importance of working to retain the Chiefs and the Royals, the shape of any incentive package may depend on who is the governor. All told, the sometimes tense and sometimes productive relationship between Jeff City and Kansas City appears set to continue. Well, boo-hoo. Whose fault is that? Who's responsible for that? 913-408-7957. It's 8:27 on a Thursday, Halloween morning here on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. On the text line, Pete, it's the state that micromanages cities. No, that's not true at all. States have laws, and cities are expected to abide by them. That's how the law works. You don't get to then make up your own laws, and I mean, within reason, make up your own laws and make up your own rules when the state says otherwise. Even the earnings tax is debatable, but I'll leave that aside for now. I got less than a minute. I'll squeeze in Carl. He is in Independence. Go ahead, Carl.
Hi, Pete. few years ago when the McCluskeys down in St. Louis were having trouble with the protesters, they called the police, which have local control, and because this would have offended the local politics, the police would not come. They tried to hire private security. Because of the politics, they would not come. They ended up using contacts through the White House to get some sort of security.
Yep.
So local control isn't all it's cracked up to be.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Carl. I would say most people would tell you in St. Louis it hasn't worked out. I mean, the numbers would bear that it hasn't worked out. And that's just because the problem is not who is overseeing the department. The problem is, well, there's a lot of them. And Mark's yelling at me to get off the air right now because we're up against it.